My hands were shaking so hard I could barely press play. The hidden camera footage loaded on my laptop screen. 2:47 a.m. last night. I watched our bedroom door open in the darkness. Michael slipped out, moving down the hallway like a shadow. Then he opened our 12-year-old daughter's door. I leaned closer to the screen, my heart pounding in my throat. The camera on Emma's bookshelf had a perfect view. He stood in her doorway for a long moment, just watching her sleep. Then he stepped inside. Slowly, carefully, like he'd done this before. He knelt beside her bed. My stomach twisted into knots. His hand reached toward her and I squeezed my eyes shut, but I forced them open again. I had to see. I had to know what my husband was doing to our daughter every night while I slept. That's when I saw his shoulders start shaking. He was crying, sobbing silently over her bed, his whole body trembling. And then he whispered something I could barely hear through the speakers. "I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." He stayed there for 16 minutes. And what he did right before he left her room, what I saw on that screen, made my blood run cold and my whole world shatter into pieces. I'm Catherine, and before I tell you the rest of this story, I need you to know something. I never thought this would be my life. I never imagined I'd be the kind of woman hiding cameras in her own home, spying on her own husband. But when you hear what led me to that moment, maybe you'll understand. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? I always read every single one. And if stories like this touch your heart, please subscribe. I need to know I'm not alone in this. Let me go back 3 weeks. That's when everything started to unravel, though I didn't know it yet. It was a Tuesday morning and I was making pancakes for Emma before school. Michael had already left for work, or so I thought. He's a financial advisor, always gone before 7. But that morning, when I went to grab my phone from our bedroom, I heard water running in our bathroom. He was still home. I knocked on the door. "Honey, you okay? You're running late." There was a long pause. Then the water shut off. "Yeah." His voice came through strained. "Just didn't sleep well." When he came out, his eyes were red and puffy. I touched his arm. "Michael, what's wrong?" He pulled away from me gently, reaching for his tie. "Nothing. Just tired." But his hands were trembling as he knotted it. I'd been married to this man for 22 years. I knew when something was wrong. That night at dinner, Emma chattered about her science project while Michael pushed food around his plate. He barely ate 3 bites. I kept glancing at him across the table, trying to catch his eye, but he stared at his plate like it held all the answers to questions I didn't know he was asking. When Emma asked him to help her with her math homework later, he flinched. "Not tonight, sweetheart," he said quietly. "Daddy's really tired." Emma's face fell. "But you promised last week you'd help me with fractions." I said not tonight. His voice came out sharper than I'd ever heard him speak to her. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She pushed back from the table and ran upstairs. I heard her bedroom door slam, and the sound echoed through our house like a gunshot. I turned to Michael, ready to ask what on earth had gotten into him. But he was already standing, his chair scraping against the floor. "I need some air," he muttered, and walked out the back door into our yard. Through the kitchen window, I watched him stand there in the darkness, his shoulders hunched, his head in his hands. He stayed out there for almost an hour. When he finally came back inside, I was loading the dishwasher. "Michael, we need to talk." "Not now, Catherine." "Yes, now. You just snapped at our daughter for no reason. You've barely said 2 words to me in days. What is going on?" He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that scared me. It was fear. Raw, desperate fear. "I can't," he whispered. "I can't talk about it." The next morning, I found him sitting on Emma's bed when I went to wake her for school. She was still asleep, her hair spread across her pillow, and Michael was just sitting there on the edge of her mattress, staring at her face. His hand was hovering near her cheek, like he wanted to touch her but didn't dare. I stood in the doorway, frozen, watching this strange scene unfold. "Michael?" I said softly. He jumped like I'd slapped him. "I was just checking on her." "At 6 in the morning?" He stood quickly, too quickly, and brushed past me without another word. I heard him go downstairs, heard the front door open and close. When I looked out our bedroom window, his car was already pulling out of the driveway. He left without saying goodbye, without his coffee, without his briefcase. That afternoon, I called his office. His secretary, Diane, answered on the second ring. "Hi, Mrs. Harrison. Looking for Michael? Is he there? He called in sick this morning. Didn't he tell you?" My heart sank into my stomach. "Oh, right. Yes. I forgot. Thank you, Diane." I hung up and sat on our couch, staring at my phone. He'd lied to me. My husband had lied straight to my face and driven away like he was running from something. I tried calling his cell. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again an hour later. Same thing. By the time Emma got home from school, I was pacing our living room, chewing my thumbnail down to the quick. Michael came home just before dinner, walking through the door like nothing had happened. "Hey," he said, setting his keys on the counter. He smelled like cigarettes, and Michael hadn't smoked since college. I watched him wash his hands at the kitchen sink, scrubbing them over and over like he was trying to wash away something more than dirt. "Where were you?" "Work. Don't lie to me." My voice came out harder than I intended. "I called your office. Diane said you called in sick." He froze, water still running over his hands. For a moment, I thought he might actually tell me the truth, but then his shoulders sagged, and he turned off the faucet. I just needed to drive, clear my head. "For 9 hours? Catherine, please." He dried his hands on a dish towel. Wouldn't look at me. "I'm dealing with something. I just need time." "Time for what? What are you dealing with?" But he was already walking away from me, heading upstairs. I followed him to our bedroom. He sat on the edge of our bed, his head in his hands again, and I saw his shoulders start to shake. He was crying. My strong, steady husband who never cried, not at his father's funeral, not when we lost our first pregnancy, was sobbing into his palms. I knelt in front of him, taking his hands in mine. "Michael, please, you're scaring me. Whatever this is, we can handle it together." He looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. "You can't help me with this. Try me." He opened his mouth like he was going to say something, then closed it again. He pulled his hands away from mine and stood up, walking to our bathroom. "I need a shower," he said, and closed the door between us. I heard the lock click, and something inside my chest cracked. In 22 years of marriage, Michael had never locked a door against me. That night, I pretended to sleep. I lay on my side, facing away from him, my eyes wide open in the darkness. I felt the bed shift around 11:30 when he finally came to bed. His breathing never settled into the deep, steady rhythm of sleep. He just lay there, staring at the ceiling, and I could feel the weight of whatever secret he was carrying pressing down on both of us. Around 1 in the morning, I heard him get up. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing slow and even. I heard him walk across our bedroom, heard our door open with the softest creak. Then I heard something that made my blood turn to ice. Emma's door opening down the hall, the gentle click of it closing again. I sat up in bed, my heart hammering. What was he doing? I strained my ears, listening for any sound. Minutes ticked by. 5, 10, 15. Finally, I heard Emma's door open again, then our bedroom door. Michael slipped back into bed beside me, and I felt him trembling. He was crying again, silently, his whole body shaking with the effort of staying quiet. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to turn over, to confront him, to demand answers, but something held me back. Some deep, primal fear that if I asked the question, I might get an answer I couldn't survive hearing. So I lay there in the darkness, pretending to sleep, while my husband cried beside me and my mind raced with terrible possibilities. It happened again the next night. And the night after that, always around the same time, between 1 and 2 in the morning. He would slip out of our bed, and I would hear Emma's door open and close. He'd stay in there for 15, sometimes 20 minutes. Then he'd come back to our bed and cry himself to sleep. I started counting the minutes he was gone, watching the red numbers on our alarm clock tick by with agonizing slowness. On the 4th night, I almost followed him. I got as far as sitting up in bed, my feet touching the cold floor. But then I thought about Emma. about what I might see if I opened that door. What if I was right? What if my worst fears were true? How do you unknow something like that? How do you come back from seeing your husband doing something unspeakable to your child? So I did nothing. I climbed back into bed and hated myself for being a coward. I lay there thinking about all the ways I'd failed as a mother, as a wife. What kind of woman lets this happen under her own roof? What kind of mother suspects something horrible and does nothing to stop it? The questions ate at me like acid, burning holes in my conscience until I could barely breathe. The next morning, I watched Emma at breakfast. I searched her face for signs of trauma, for shadows under her eyes, for any indication that something was wrong. But she seemed fine, normal. She laughed at a video on her phone and asked me if her friend Sophie could come over after school. She kissed Michael on the cheek before grabbing her backpack. "Love you, Dad," she said, and skipped out the door to catch the bus. Michael watched her go with that same haunted look in his eyes. When the door closed behind her, he turned to me. "Catherine, What?" I snapped. "What, Michael? What are you going to say? That everything's fine? That I'm imagining things?" He looked at me like I'd struck him. "You know?" My breath caught in my throat. "Know what?" But he was already shaking his head, grabbing his keys. "Nothing. Forget it." And he left, just like that, leaving me standing in our kitchen with my heart racing and my mind spinning out of control. That afternoon, I made a decision. I drove to an electronics store across town where nobody would recognize me. The young man at the counter barely looked up when I asked about security cameras. "For your home?" he asked, scrolling through his phone. "Yes. Something small, discreet." He showed me 3 different models. I chose the smallest one, no bigger than a book of matches. "How's the video quality?" I asked. "Crystal clear, even in low light, connects to an app on your phone. You can watch the feed live or review footage later." I paid in cash. The whole drive home, the small box sat on my passenger seat like a bomb waiting to explode. I waited until everyone was out of the house the next day. Michael at work, or wherever he was actually going. Emma at school. I stood in my daughter's doorway for a long moment, looking at her room. Her stuffed animals lined up on her bed. Her walls covered with posters of pop stars and soccer players. Her bookshelf crammed with novels and comic books. This was supposed to be her safe space, her sanctuary, and I was about to violate it. But what choice did I have? I walked to her bookshelf and carefully positioned the camera between 2 thick Harry Potter books. The lens was barely visible, just a tiny black dot that you'd never notice unless you knew it was there. I downloaded the app on my phone, made sure the connection was working. The feed came through perfectly, a clear view of Emma's entire bed. My hands were shaking as I backed out of her room. I felt sick, dirty, like I was doing something just as wrong as whatever Michael might be doing. But I had to know. I had to protect my daughter, even if it meant discovering something that would destroy our family forever. That night at dinner, I could barely eat. Every time I looked at Michael, I wanted to scream. Every time I looked at Emma, I wanted to cry. Michael went to bed early, claiming he had a headache. Emma stayed up doing homework at the kitchen table while I cleaned up dinner. I kept my phone in my pocket, checking it every few minutes to make sure the camera was still working. The feed showed her empty bed, her nightlight casting that familiar green glow. Around 10 o'clock, Emma went upstairs to bed. I heard her brushing her teeth, heard her door close. I gave her 30 minutes to fall asleep. Then I went upstairs myself. Michael was already in bed, his back to me, still awake. I could tell by his breathing. I changed into my pajamas, climbed under the covers, and lay there in the darkness, my phone hidden under my pillow. The waiting was torture. Every minute felt like an hour. I kept glancing at the clock. 11:30, midnight, 12:30. My whole body was tense, coiled like a spring. Then, at 1:47 a.m., I felt Michael shift beside me. The bed creaked slightly as he sat up. I kept my breathing slow and steady, my eyes closed. I felt him looking at me in the darkness, probably making sure I was asleep. Then he stood. I heard the soft rustle of his pajamas, the whisper of his feet on our carpet. Our bedroom door opened. I counted to 10 in my head, then slowly pulled my phone from under my pillow. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I opened the app, and the live feed from Emma's room filled my screen. The room was empty. Just her bed, her nightlight, her stuffed animals. Then I saw her door open. Michael stepped inside and my heart stopped. He stood there in the doorway for what felt like forever, just watching our daughter sleep. Then he moved toward her bed. Each step was careful, deliberate. He was trying so hard not to wake her. Why? What was he planning to do that he needed her to stay asleep? He knelt beside her bed, and I had to bite my fist to keep from crying out. This was it. This was the moment when I'd learn the truth. His hand reached toward her and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't blink. I couldn't look away. Then his hand stopped in midair, hovering just above her face. His shoulders started shaking. Through the phone's speakers, turned down to the lowest volume, I heard him crying. "I'm so sorry, baby," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." He stayed there kneeling beside her bed, crying silently. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. He just knelt there, watching her sleep, tears streaming down his face. Then he did something that confused me even more. He bowed his head, closed his eyes, and his lips started moving. He was praying. My husband, who hadn't been to church since we got married, was praying over our daughter's bed. After 16 minutes, he stood slowly. He reached into his pocket and pulled something out. It was too dark to see what it was, but he held it in his palm for a long moment, staring down at it. Then he placed it on Emma's nightstand, right next to her water glass. He looked at her one more time, and the expression on his face, God, I'd never seen such anguish, such complete despair. It looked like he was saying goodbye. Then he left her room, closing the door behind him with barely a sound. I shoved my phone back under my pillow just as our bedroom door opened. Michael climbed back into bed beside me, and I felt him trembling. His quiet sobs filled the darkness between us. I lay there, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. He wasn't touching her. He wasn't hurting her. He was crying over her and praying. But why? What was he sorry for? What had he put on her nightstand? I waited until his breathing finally evened out, until I was sure he was asleep. Then I carefully slipped out of bed. My legs felt weak as I walked to Emma's room. I opened her door as quietly as I could, my heart pounding in my ears. The green nightlight illuminated her sleeping face. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. I crept to her nightstand. There, next to her water glass, was a small white envelope. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was sealed. On the front, in Michael's handwriting, was just one word, Emma. I turned it over in my hands, and that's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The envelope was thick. There was something inside, something that felt like papers, or maybe money, or maybe... What? What was my husband leaving for our daughter in the middle of the night? I stood there in the darkness, holding that envelope, and every terrible possibility ran through my mind. Was this a confession? An apology letter? Evidence of something unspeakable? Was he planning to hurt himself? To hurt us? The envelope felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I knew if I opened it, if I read what was inside, there would be no going back. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. But I had to know. I couldn't spend another night lying in the darkness, wondering, imagining, slowly going insane with fear and uncertainty. My daughter was sleeping 3 feet away from me, trusting that I would protect her, that I would keep her safe. Whatever was happening in this house, whatever secret Michael was hiding, I had to face it head on, even if it destroyed me, even if it destroyed everything. I slipped my finger under the envelope's seal. The envelope tore open with a soft ripping sound that seemed too loud in the quiet of Emma's room. I pulled out what was inside and had to steady myself against her nightstand. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't money. It was a stack of photographs, maybe 20 of them, held together with a paperclip. The top photo showed Emma as a baby, maybe 6 months old, sitting in someone's lap. But the person holding her had been cut out of the picture. Just a pair of hands remained, cradling her tiny body. I flipped to the next photo. Emma at her first birthday party, blowing out a candle on a small cake. Again, someone had been carefully cut out of the frame, Then another photo of Emma at maybe 2 years old, at a park, reaching up towards someone whose body had been removed from the picture. My hands trembled as I went through the stack. Every single photo had been mutilated the same way. Someone had taken scissors and carefully, methodically, cut themselves out of Emma's life. But who? And why did Michael have these? I turned the stack over and found a small note card tucked behind the last photo. The handwriting was shaky, almost illegible. "She deserves to know the truth. I'm sorry I waited so long. I'm sorry for everything." It wasn't signed. I stood there in my daughter's room, holding these strange, mutilated photographs, and nothing made sense anymore. Who was this person cut out of every picture? What truth did Emma deserve to know? I heard movement from our bedroom. Michael shifting in his sleep. Panic shot through me like electricity. I couldn't let him know I'd found these. Not yet. Not until I understood what they meant. I shoved the photos back into the envelope and slipped it into the pocket of my robe. Then I crept out of Emma's room, closing her door with trembling hands. When I got back to our bedroom, Michael was sitting up in bed. "Catherine?" His voice was thick with sleep. "What are you doing?" "Bathroom," I whispered, and hurried past him before he could see my face. I locked myself in our bathroom and sat on the closed toilet lid, pulling the envelope out of my pocket. I went through the photos again, more slowly this time. Emma at 3 years old, at 4, at 5, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, days at the beach. In every single photo, someone had been systematically erased. Then I noticed something. In one of the photos, Emma was wearing a small gold bracelet. I recognized it immediately. My mother had given it to Emma for her 3rd birthday, but my mother had died when Emma was 2. So who took this photo? Who was at Emma's 3rd birthday party with a gold bracelet my dead mother had supposedly given her? Nothing about this made sense. I heard Michael knock on the bathroom door. "Catherine, you okay in there?" "Fine," I called out, my voice shaking. "Just a minute." I stuffed the photos back into the envelope and hid them in the cupboard under the sink, behind the extra toilet paper where Michael would never look. Then I flushed the toilet and washed my hands, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes wide and frightened. I looked like a stranger. When I opened the door, Michael was standing right there. "You were gone a long time," he said quietly. Stomachache. I pushed past him, climbed back into bed, and turned away from him. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. Behind me, I felt him settle back under the covers. Neither of us slept for the rest of the night. The next morning at breakfast, I couldn't stop staring at Emma. Who was she, really? Was there some part of her life I didn't know about? Some secret in her past that Michael was only now revealing to her? Emma noticed me watching her and smiled. "What, Mom? Do I have syrup on my face?" "No, sweetie, you're perfect." Michael wouldn't look at either of us. He pushed his eggs around his plate and left for work without kissing me goodbye. As soon as Emma's bus pulled away, I ran upstairs and retrieved the envelope from its hiding place. I spread the photos out on our bed and studied each one carefully. There had to be something I was missing. Some clue. That's when I noticed the backgrounds. In several photos, there was a house visible behind Emma. Not our house. A different house, painted yellow with white shutters. I'd never seen this house before. Where was this? When were these photos taken? I grabbed my phone and took pictures of the photographs, then hid the envelope back in the bathroom. I spent the entire morning searching through old photo albums, looking for anything that matched the yellow house. Nothing. I went through boxes of pictures stored in our attic. Still nothing. It was like this place didn't exist in our family history. But Emma had been there. Multiple times, judging by the photos, and someone had been with her. Someone who was now desperately trying to erase themselves from her memory. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Michael. "Hey," he said, his voice strained. "I need to tell you something." My heart stopped. "What?" There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing on the other end. "I'm coming home early today. We need to talk. All 3 of us. You, me, and Emma." "About what?" "I can't do this over the phone. I'll be home by the time Emma gets off the bus." He hung up before I could ask anything else. I sat on our couch, staring at my phone. This was it. Whatever secret he'd been carrying, whatever those photos meant, he was finally going to tell us. Part of me felt relief, but mostly, I felt terror. What truth was so terrible that it had driven my husband to tears every night for weeks? I tried to call him back 3 times. Every time, it went straight to voicemail. I paced our living room, checking the clock every few minutes. Time moved like frozen honey. Finally, at 3:15, Emma's bus pulled up. I watched her skip down our driveway, backpack bouncing on her shoulders, completely oblivious to the bomb that was about to explode her life. "Hey, Mom." She dropped her backpack by the door. "Can Sophie come over tomorrow? Her mom said it's okay if—" "Emma, honey." I put my hands on her shoulders. "Dad's coming home early. He wants to talk to us about something important." Her smile faded. Is he mad at me? Is this about the math test I failed? No, baby. It's not about you. But even as I said it, I wondered if that was true. Maybe this was entirely about her. Maybe everything was about her. Michael's car pulled into the driveway at 3:40. I watched him sit there for a full minute before getting out. His head was bowed, his hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. When he finally came inside, his eyes were red and swollen. He'd been crying again. "Hey, Emma Bear," he said softly, and his voice broke on her nickname. Emma looked between us, confused and starting to get scared. "What's going on?" Michael sat down on the couch and patted the cushion next to him. "Come sit with me, sweetheart. You too, Catherine." His hands were shaking. I'd never seen him like this, so broken, so defeated. I sat on Emma's other side, and she grabbed my hand, squeezing tight. "Daddy, you're scaring me," Emma whispered. Michael wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I know, baby. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." He took a deep breath, like he was about to jump off a cliff. "Emma, there's something you need to know. Something I should have told you a long time ago." My heart was racing. I watched Michael's face, watched the way his jaw trembled as he tried to form words. Emma's hand squeezed mine even tighter. "What is it, Daddy? You know how you've always looked different from Mom and me?" Michael's voice was barely a whisper now. "How you have that beautiful dark hair and those eyes?" Emma nodded slowly. "Yeah, you said I got them from Great-Grandma." I lied. Tears started streaming down Michael's face. "Emma, sweetheart, I'm not your biological father." The words hung in the air like smoke. For a moment, none of us moved. None of us breathed. Then Emma pulled her hand from mine. "What? You're adopted, baby. We adopted you when you were 6 months old." Emma stood up, backing away from both of us. Her face had gone completely white. No, that's not true. You're lying." I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. "Adopted? Our daughter was adopted?" I stared at Michael, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Michael," I finally managed to say, "what are you talking about?" "I'm sorry, Catherine, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you both so many times, but But you what?" My voice came out sharp, cutting. "You forgot to mention that our daughter isn't actually our daughter?" Emma was crying now, big gasping sobs. "Mom, did you know?" "No." I stood up, my legs shaking. "No, Emma, I swear to God I didn't know." Michael put his head in his hands. "I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I was protecting you both." I thought, protecting us from what? I was shouting now. From the truth? From reality? Emma ran upstairs. I heard her door slam so hard it shook the house. I turned to Michael, and I could barely see him through my tears. "Tell me everything. Right now. Or I'm taking Emma and leaving." He nodded, wiping his face. "Her biological mother's name was Sarah. Sarah Chen. She was my college girlfriend before I met you. We were together for 2 years. His voice was flat now, mechanical, like he'd rehearsed this confession 1,000 times. "She got pregnant the summer after we graduated. We were both 22, broke, terrified. We decided to give the baby up for adoption. But you didn't," I said quietly. "No. When Emma was born, Sarah changed her mind. She wanted to keep her. But she was sick, Catherine. Really sick. She had advanced kidney disease that got worse after the pregnancy. The doctors said she had maybe 2 years left. He looked up at me finally, and his eyes were hollow. She begged me to take Emma, to raise her, to give her a life she couldn't. I sank back onto the couch. My whole body felt numb. So you just took her? And never told anyone? I told Sarah I'd recently gotten married. She was so relieved. She thought Emma would have a mother and a father. A real family. Michael's voice cracked again. We did a private adoption. Sarah signed over all her rights. I brought Emma home and told you I'd found her through an agency. You were so happy, Catherine. You'd been trying to get pregnant for 3 years, and every month broke your heart a little more. When I showed up with this beautiful baby girl, you cried for an hour. I remembered that day. I remembered holding Emma for the first time, feeling her tiny heartbeat against my chest. I'd been so grateful, so full of love. You lied to me for 12 years. I know. You lied to our daughter for her entire life. I know. He was crying again. Sarah made me promise never to tell Emma about her. She didn't want Emma to watch her die. She didn't want Emma's first memory of her to be a hospital room and tubes and machines. So what changed? I demanded. Why are you telling us now? Michael reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. He scrolled through it with shaking hands, then turned the screen toward me. It was an email. The sender was listed as Sarah Chen. The date was from 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. Right when Michael had started falling apart. I took the phone from him and read the email. Dear Michael, I know I promised never to contact you again, but I'm out of time. The doctors say I have maybe a month left. I need to see Emma. I need to tell her who I am before I die. Please, I'm begging you. She has a right to know her mother. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. She's still alive? Barely. She's in hospice now, in Philadelphia. Michael's voice was barely a whisper. She's been emailing me for 3 weeks. Begging, pleading. She wants to meet Emma. She wants Emma to know the truth before she dies. And those photos? I pulled out my phone and showed him the pictures I'd taken of the mutilated photographs. These were from her? Michael nodded. She sent them with her last email. She'd cut herself out of all of them because she didn't want Emma to see her face until they met in person. She wanted Emma to hear the truth from her own mouth. I stood up, walked to the window, stared out at our perfectly normal suburban street. Everything looked the same as it had this morning. Same houses, same trees, same mailboxes. But nothing would ever be the same again. You should have told me. I know. You should have told her. I know. You had no right to make this decision alone. I know, Michael shouted, and it was the first time I'd heard him raise his voice in years. Don't you think I know that? Don't you think I've been dying inside for 3 weeks knowing what I had to do? Upstairs, Emma's music started playing. Loud, angry music that vibrated through the floorboards. I closed my eyes. What are you asking me, Michael? Sarah wants to meet her. This weekend, before it's too late. And what does Emma want? I haven't asked her yet. I laughed, but it came out bitter and broken. Of course you haven't, because you've been too busy making decisions for everyone else. Michael stood up, walked toward me. Catherine, please. I know I screwed up. I know I've ruined everything. But Sarah is dying. Emma deserves a chance to meet her real mother before. I'm her real mother. The words came out hard and cold. I'm the one who stayed up with her when she had nightmares. I'm the one who held her hand on her first day of school. I'm the one who taught her to ride a bike and braid her hair and believe in herself. I know that. I do. But Sarah gave her up. I turned to face him. She made her choice 12 years ago. You don't get to just change your mind when it's convenient. Michael's face crumpled. She's dying, Catherine. Can you imagine what that feels like? Knowing you have a daughter out there somewhere and you'll never see her again? Never know what kind of person she became? Yes, I wanted to scream. Yes, I can imagine. Because thanks to you, that's exactly what I'm going to have to face if Emma chooses her biological mother over me. But I didn't say it. I just stood there, feeling my world crack apart like thin ice. I need to think, I said finally. I need to process this, and you need to go sleep somewhere else tonight. Catherine, get out, Michael. My voice was quiet but firm. Take a bag. Go to a hotel. I can't look at you right now." He nodded slowly, like he'd expected this. Maybe he had. Maybe he'd been preparing for this moment for 12 years. He went upstairs and I heard him moving around in our bedroom, packing. Then he came back down with a small duffel bag. He paused at the door. "I love you. Both of you. Everything I did because I thought it was right. The road to hell," I said quietly. "What?" "Nothing. Just go." He left. I heard his car start, heard him pull out of the driveway. Then the house was silent except for Emma's music still pounding upstairs. I walked to the bottom of the stairs and called up. "Emma? Honey?" The music shut off. "Go away. Emma, please. We need to talk about this. About how my entire life is a lie? About how you're not even my real mom?" The words hit me like a fist to the stomach. I gripped the banister to keep from falling. "Emma, I am your real mom. Biology doesn't change that." Her door opened. She stood at the top of the stairs, her face blotchy and wet with tears. "Yes, it does. It changes everything. Who am I, Mom? Who am I really? You're Emma Marie Harrison. You're 12 years old. You're smart and funny and kind. You love soccer and reading and making friendship bracelets. You're my daughter. But I'm her daughter too, aren't I?" Emma's voice was small now, broken. "And she's dying. And I never even got to meet her." I climbed the stairs slowly, carefully, like I was approaching a wounded animal. "Do you want to meet her?" Emma stared at me for a long moment. "I don't know. Maybe. I don't know anything anymore." I reached the top of the stairs and pulled her into my arms. She was stiff at first, resistant, but then she melted into me and sobbed against my shoulder. I held her tight, stroking her hair, feeling my own tears soak into her t-shirt. "I'm scared, Mom," she whispered. "I know, baby. Me too. What if I meet her and I like her better than you?" The fear I'd been holding back crashed over me like a wave. "Then I'll deal with it. Because the only thing that matters is what's best for you." We stood there in the hallway for a long time, just holding each other. Finally, Emma pulled back and wiped her eyes. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Those pictures Dad had, the ones where someone was cut out, that was her, wasn't it? My birth mom?" I nodded. "She wanted you to know she existed, but she wanted to tell you in person." Emma bit her lip. "What's her name?" "Sarah. Sarah Chen." Emma repeated the name softly, like she was trying it on. "Do you have a picture of her? A real one?" "I don't. But maybe Dad does." I pulled out my phone and texted Michael. "Do you have a photo of Sarah? Emma wants to see her." The 3 dots appeared immediately. Then a photo came through. A woman in her early 20s, sitting on a park bench, laughing at something off camera. She had long dark hair and warm brown eyes, and she looked exactly like Emma would look in 10 years. I showed Emma the photo. She stared at it for a long time, tracing her finger over the woman's face. "She's pretty." "She is." "I have her eyes." "You do?" Emma handed the phone back to me. "I think I want to meet her. Before she dies. I think I need to." I felt something inside my chest shatter and reform at the same time. "Okay. Then we'll go." "Really?" "Really, this weekend. All 3 of us. We'll drive to Philadelphia together." Emma threw her arms around my neck. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you." I held her tight and tried not to think about what might happen after this weekend. Tried not to think about losing her. Because the truth was, I'd already lost a piece of her. The moment Michael spoke those words downstairs, the moment Emma learned she'd been lied to her whole life, something between us had broken. Maybe we could fix it. Maybe meeting Sarah would give Emma closure instead of dividing her loyalties. Or maybe this was the beginning of the end of everything I'd ever known. I pulled back and looked at Emma's face. "Go wash up. I'll make us some dinner." "I'm not really hungry." "Me neither. But we should eat something anyway." She nodded and went to the bathroom. I heard the water running. I walked downstairs on shaky legs and texted Michael. "Emma wants to meet her. This weekend. You're driving us." His response came immediately. "Thank you. I'll arrange everything with Sarah's hospice." I didn't reply. I just stood in our kitchen, looking at the photos of our family covering the refrigerator. Emma at her soccer games. Emma on her first day of middle school. Emma blowing out birthday candles. In every single photo, she was smiling, happy, loved. Had it all been built on a lie? My phone rang. It was my sister, Kelly. I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't talk to anyone right now. Couldn't explain what was happening because I barely understood it myself. Instead, I opened the pantry and stared at the cans and boxes, trying to remember what normal people did when their worlds fell apart. Did they make dinner? Did they cry? Did they scream? I did none of those things. I just stood there until Emma came downstairs, her face freshly washed, her eyes still red and puffy. She sat at the kitchen table and looked at me. "Mom, are you okay?" "No," I wanted to say. "I'm not okay. I'm not even close to okay." But I smiled at her instead and said, "I will be. We all will be." I just hoped that was true. That night, after Emma went to bed, I pulled out the envelope of photos again. I studied each one carefully, looking for details I'd missed before. In one photo, Emma was holding a small stuffed rabbit. I'd never seen that rabbit before. In another, she was wearing a dress I didn't recognize. These were pieces of Emma's life that existed before me, moments I'd never been part of, memories that belonged to someone else. I wondered what Sarah had been like as a mother during those 6 months. Had she sung lullabies? Had she counted Emma's fingers and toes? Had she memorized the sound of her laugh? Or had she kept her distance, knowing she'd have to give her up? My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "I'm at the Holiday Inn on Route 30 if you need me." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to call him, to yell at him, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain I was feeling. But another part of me understood. He'd been trapped between two impossible choices. Tell the truth and destroy Emma's image of herself. Keep the secret and destroy his own soul. There was no right answer. I texted back, "Okay." Then I lay in our empty bed and cried until I had nothing left inside. Friday afternoon, we loaded into Michael's car for the 3-hour drive to Philadelphia. Emma sat in the back seat, headphones on, staring out the window. She hadn't said more than 10 words since breakfast. Michael gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, his jaw tight. I sat in the passenger seat watching the highway blur past. My stomach twisted into knots that wouldn't loosen. The hospice facility was in a quiet neighborhood lined with old oak trees. The building itself looked more like a Victorian house than a medical facility, painted soft blue with white trim. Michael parked, and for a moment, none of us moved. We just sat there in the car, 3 people about to walk through a door that would change everything on the other side. Emma pulled off her headphones. Her voice was small. "What if she doesn't like me?" I turned in my seat to look at her. "Emma, she's been waiting 12 years to meet you. She's going to love you. But what if I don't like her?" That was the question neither Michael nor I could answer. I reached back and squeezed her hand. "Then we deal with that too. Together." Michael checked us in at the front desk. A nurse with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun smiled at Emma. "You must be Emma. Sarah's been talking about you all week. She's so excited." She led us down a hallway that smelled like lavender and something else underneath. Something medicinal and sad. "Just so you know, Sarah is very weak. She's on oxygen and pain medication. She might seem confused at times, but she's been lucid all morning. She wanted to be alert for your visit." We stopped outside room 12. Through the half-open door, I could see the edge of a hospital bed, machines beeping softly. The nurse knocked gently. "Sarah, your visitors are here." A voice came from inside, weak but warm. "Send them in." Michael looked at me. I looked at Emma. She took a deep breath, squared her small shoulders, and walked through that door first. Michael and I followed, and what I saw made my heart clench in my chest. The woman in the bed was barely recognizable from the photo Michael had shown us. Sarah Chen was skeletal, her dark hair gone, replaced by a thin scarf wrapped around her head. Her skin was pale yellow, stretched tight over bones that seemed too prominent, but her eyes were the same as in the photo, the same as Emma's eyes. Those eyes filled with tears the moment Emma stepped into the room. Sarah's hand trembled as she reached toward her daughter. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Look at you. You're so beautiful." Emma stood frozen in the doorway, staring. I could see her trying to reconcile the vibrant woman from the photo with this dying stranger in the bed. Sarah seemed to understand. She dropped her hand back to the blanket. I know I don't look like much right now. The treatment takes everything from you. She smiled weakly. But I wanted to be here, to see you, to tell you how sorry I am. For what? Emma's voice was barely audible. For everything. For giving you away. For not being strong enough to keep you. For making your father lie to you all these years. Tears streamed down Sarah's sunken cheeks. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you'd be better off not knowing me, not watching me die slowly. But I was wrong. You deserved the truth. Emma took a step closer to the bed, then another. She was crying too now, silent tears running down her face. Did you ever think about me? Every single day. Sarah's voice broke. Every birthday. Every Christmas. Every milestone I knew I was missing. I wondered what you looked like, what you sounded like, if you were happy. It was the only thing that kept me going, knowing you were out there somewhere. Being loved. I watched this scene unfold from the doorway, Michael beside me. I felt like an intruder, like I was witnessing something too private, too sacred, but I couldn't look away. Emma reached the edge of Sarah's bed and stood there, her hands clenched at her sides. Why didn't you try to see me sooner? Because I promised your father I wouldn't interfere, and because I was a coward. Sarah coughed. A wet, rattling sound that made the machines beep faster. But when the doctors told me I had weeks left, I couldn't bear the thought of dying without meeting you, without telling you that you were wanted, that you were loved, that giving you up was the hardest thing I've ever done. Emma reached out slowly, hesitantly, and touched Sarah's hand. The moment their skin connected, Sarah let out a sob that seemed to come from somewhere deep and broken inside her. She wrapped her thin fingers around Emma's hand and held on like she was drowning. You have your grandmother's eyes, Sarah whispered. My mother. She died when I was 16. I wish she could have met you. Tell me about her, Emma said, and she sat down on the edge of the bed. For the next hour, Sarah talked. About Emma's grandmother who loved to garden. About Emma's grandfather who played jazz saxophone. About uncles and aunts and cousins Emma never knew existed. About a whole family history that had been erased from her life. Michael and I stood by the window, giving them space, and I watched my daughter discover where she came from. At one point, a nurse came in to check Sarah's vitals and adjust her medication. Sarah winced when the IV was moved. Emma noticed. Does it hurt a lot? Sometimes, Sarah admitted. But not right now. Right now I feel better than I have in months. Because of me? Because of you. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that made my heart stop. I wish you hadn't given me up. I wish I'd gotten to know you before you got sick. Sarah's face crumpled. Oh, sweetheart, no. Don't wish that. You had a beautiful childhood with parents who loved you from the moment they saw you. I gave you that. That's the only thing I did right. She looked past Emma to where I stood. Her eyes met mine, and I saw gratitude there. And sadness, and something like resignation. Catherine, will you come here, please? My legs felt like lead as I walked to the bed. I stood next to Emma, looking down at the woman who'd given birth to my daughter. Sarah reached out her other hand toward me. I took it. Her skin was cool and papery thin. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for loving her. Thank you for being the mother I couldn't be. I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight. I just nodded. Sarah squeezed both our hands, Emma's and mine, connecting us. Emma, listen to me. This woman right here, she's your real mother. She's the one who earned that title every single day for 12 years. Biology gave you to me for 6 months. Love gave you to her for a lifetime. Don't you ever forget that. Emma looked up at me, and in her eyes I saw confusion and love and fear all mixed together. I won't forget. And Catherine, Sarah said, turning back to me, don't hate Michael for this. He was trying to honor my wishes while protecting Emma. He was caught in an impossible situation. We both were. She coughed again, harder this time. I need to rest now. But Emma, will you come back tomorrow? I have some things I want to give you. Photos, letters, things I've been saving. Emma nodded. I'll come back. I promise. We said our goodbyes and filed out of the room. In the hallway, Emma walked ahead of us, her shoulders shaking. When we got outside to the parking lot, she turned around and ran into my arms. Mom, she's dying, and it's not fair. I know, baby. Life isn't fair sometimes. But I just met her. I just found out she exists, and now she's going away forever. I held her while she cried, stroking her hair, letting my own tears fall into the autumn air. Michael stood a few feet away, watching us, his hands in his pockets. When Emma finally pulled back and wiped her eyes, I walked over to him. He looked at me with such fear, such desperate hope for forgiveness. I took his hand. We're going to be okay, I said quietly. All of us. That night we stayed at a hotel near the hospice. Emma fell asleep quickly, exhausted from emotion. Michael and I sat on the small balcony drinking coffee, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. I'm sorry, he said for the 100th time. I know. I should have told you from the beginning. Yes, you should have. I looked at him. But I understand why you didn't. You were protecting her. And me. In your own misguided way. Michael's eyes filled with tears. I thought if I told you the truth, you might love her less, might treat her differently, knowing she wasn't really ours. She is really ours, I said firmly. She's been ours since the day you brought her home. Sarah was right about that. Biology doesn't make you a parent. Love does. Showing up every single day does. Do you think you can forgive me? I thought about it for a long moment. Eventually. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But eventually. I reached over and took his hand. We're going to need counseling, family therapy. Emma's going to need help processing all of this, and you and I need to rebuild trust. Whatever it takes, Michael said. I'll do whatever it takes. We sat there in silence, holding hands, watching the night deepen around us. Inside, Emma stirred in her sleep and called out. I went to her, sat on the edge of her bed, stroked her hair until she settled. She opened her eyes halfway. Mom? I'm here, baby. I'm glad it's you. I'm glad you're my mom. Those words healed something inside me that I didn't even know was broken. I'm glad it's me, too. The next morning we went back to the hospice. Sarah looked worse than she had yesterday, her breathing more labored, her skin somehow more translucent, but her eyes lit up when Emma walked in. I was afraid you wouldn't come back. I promised I would. Sarah gestured weakly to a box on the table beside her bed. Open it. Emma pulled the box toward her and lifted the lid. Inside were photos, dozens of them, showing Sarah pregnant, showing Sarah holding newborn Emma, showing the first 6 months of Emma's life. There were letters, too, sealed envelopes addressed to Emma for different ages. For your 13th birthday, one read. For your 16th birthday. For your wedding day. For when you become a mother. Emma pulled out the photos one by one, studying each face, each moment. You kept all of these? Every single one. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. Sarah's voice was getting weaker. Emma, I need you to know something. The day I gave you to your father, I held you for 3 hours. I memorized everything about you, your smell, your weight, the way your tiny fingers wrapped around mine. And I told myself that if I could just give you a chance at a better life, that sacrifice would be worth it. Was it worth it? Emma asked. Sarah looked at her daughter, really looked at her, taking in her healthy skin, her bright eyes, her confidence. Yes, look at you. You're perfect. You're loved. You're whole. That's all I ever wanted for you. Emma climbed onto the bed carefully, mindful of the tubes and wires, and curled up next to Sarah. Sarah wrapped one arm around her, and they lay there together, mother and daughter, for the first time in 12 years. I watched from the doorway, tears streaming down my face, and I felt Michael's hand slip into mine. We stayed for 2 more hours. Sarah told Emma stories, showed her more photos, explained family history. When we finally had to leave, Emma hugged Sarah tight. I'll come back next weekend. But Sarah shook her head gently. No, sweetheart. I don't think I'll be here next weekend. This is goodbye. No, Emma said, panic rising in her voice. You can't. I just found you. You can't leave yet. I held on this long just to meet you, just to tell you everything I needed to say. Now I can let go." Sarah touched Emma's cheek with trembling fingers. "You're going to have a beautiful life, Emma. Be kind. Be brave. Be yourself. And remember that you were born from love, even if you weren't raised by the woman who gave birth to you." Emma was sobbing now. So was I. Sarah looked at me over Emma's head. "Take care of her. Always," I whispered. We left the hospice with Emma clutching the box of photos and letters against her chest. She didn't speak the entire drive home. She just stared out the window, tears running silently down her face. When we pulled into our driveway, she finally spoke. "She's going to die alone." "She's not alone," Michael said gently. "The nurses are with her, and she got to say goodbye to you. That's all she wanted." Emma got out of the car and went straight to her room. I heard her door close quietly, not slam. Later, I brought her dinner on a tray, but she'd barely touched it when I came back an hour later. She was lying on her bed, looking through the photos, tears leaving dark spots on the pictures. I sat down beside her. "Talk to me, Em. I don't know what to feel. I'm sad she's dying, but I'm also kind of angry that she gave me up. And I feel guilty for being angry because she did it to save me. And I'm confused because I love you, but I think I might have loved her too if I'd known her." She looked up at me with those eyes that were Sarah's eyes. "Is that okay? To love both of you?" "Oh, baby, yes. Yes, it's more than okay." I pulled her into my arms. "Love isn't a finite resource. You can love both of us. You should love both of us. She gave you life. I helped you live it. We're both part of your story. I just wish the story had a different ending." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." 2 days later, on Monday morning before school, Michael got the call. Sarah had passed away peacefully in her sleep around 3 a.m. Emma was in the kitchen eating cereal when Michael told her. She set down her spoon carefully, stood up slowly, and walked to her room. She stayed home from school that day and the next. She didn't cry much. She just lay in her bed, holding that stuffed rabbit from the photos, the one Sarah had kept all these years. On Wednesday, we received a package from Sarah's lawyer. Inside was a letter addressed to Emma and a small velvet box. Emma opened the letter with shaking hands. I sat beside her on the couch while she read it aloud. "My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But I'm not really gone. I'm in your eyes. I'm in your smile. I'm in your strength. I'm in every choice you make to be kind when you could be cruel, to be brave when you could be scared." Emma's voice wavered, but she kept reading. "I want you to know that giving you up was my greatest sacrifice, and my greatest gift. My sacrifice because I lost the chance to watch you grow. My gift because I gave you to people who would love you the way you deserve to be loved. Thank you for coming to see me. Thank you for letting me tell you the truth. Thank you for giving me peace in my final days. I love you, Emma Marie. I always have. I always will. Forever, your first mom." Emma folded the letter carefully and opened the velvet box. Inside was a simple gold locket. She opened it, and inside were 2 tiny photos. One of Sarah, young and healthy and laughing. One of Emma as a newborn. Emma took it out and held it up. "Will you help me put it on?" I clasped the locket around her neck with trembling fingers. She touched it gently, and I saw her lip quiver. "I'm going to wear it every day." "That's perfect, baby. She'd love that." That weekend, Michael, Emma, and I attended Sarah's memorial service in Philadelphia. It was small, just a few friends and distant relatives. Emma read a poem she'd written about mothers and love and sacrifice. There wasn't a dry eye in the chapel. On the drive home, Emma spoke from the back seat. "Dad?" "Yeah, sweetie. Thank you for taking me to see her. I know it was hard for you." Michael's voice was thick with emotion. "You don't have to thank me. I should have done it years ago. But you did it when it mattered most. That's what counts." We drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Emma said, "Mom?" "Yes, baby? I'm sorry if I ever made you feel like you weren't my real mom. Sarah was right. You're the one who earned it. Every single day." I reached back and squeezed her hand. "We earned each other, Em. That's how family works." The following months were hard. We started family therapy like I'd insisted. Emma had sessions alone to process her grief and identity. Michael and I went to couples counseling to rebuild our trust. There were setbacks and arguments and nights when I wasn't sure we'd make it through. But slowly, gradually, we started to heal. Emma threw herself into soccer and school. She wore Sarah's locket every day and read through the letters Sarah had left for different milestones in her life. On Emma's 13th birthday, we had a small party with her friends, and afterward, she opened the envelope Sarah had marked for that day. Inside was a letter about becoming a teenager and a photo of Sarah at 13. "We even parted our hair the same way," Emma said, showing me the picture. 6 months after Sarah died, Emma asked if we could make a memory book. Not about Sarah, but about our family, all of us. We spent a weekend going through photos, both the ones from Sarah and the ones from Emma's life with us. Emma arranged them chronologically, creating a complete story of her life. The first page showed Sarah pregnant. The last page showed Emma blowing out birthday candles at 13, me and Michael on either side of her. "This is who I am," Emma said, closing the book. All of it, every piece. 1 year after meeting Sarah, Emma and I took flowers to her grave. It was a cold November morning, the kind where you can see your breath in the air. We stood there in silence for a while, just the two of us, surrounded by fallen leaves. Finally, Emma spoke to the gravestone. "I got an A on my history paper, and I made varsity soccer, and I'm learning to play guitar." She paused. "I thought you'd want to know." The wind rustled through the cemetery trees, and I swear it sounded like someone whispering approval. Emma touched the locket around her neck. "I wish you could have stayed longer, but I'm glad I got to meet you. I'm glad I know where I came from." We turned to leave, and Emma slipped her hand into mine. "Mom?" "Yeah, baby. Thank you for bringing me here, and for not being jealous or angry that I wanted to know her. Emma, I could never be angry about you honoring where you came from. That's part of who you are." As we walked back to the car, Emma said something that made my heart swell. "I think I'm the luckiest kid in the world. Most people only get one mom. I got two. One who gave me life and one who gave me a life." I stopped walking and pulled her into a hug right there in the cemetery. "I love you so much, Emma Marie." "I love you too, Mom." That night at dinner, the three of us sat around the table like we had hundreds of times before. But something was different now. We were different, stronger, more honest, more real. Michael reached across the table and took my hand. Emma smiled at both of us, and for the first time in months, it reached her eyes. "Tell me about the day you brought me home," Emma said to Michael. The real story. All of it. And he did. He told her about Sarah's hospital room, about signing the papers, about the drive home with a 6-month-old baby in the back seat. He told her about being terrified and thrilled and overwhelmed all at once. And we listened together, all of us, as the truth finally set us free. Years later, when Emma was packing for college, she carefully wrapped Sarah's memory box and the photo album in bubble wrap. "I'm taking both," she told me. "Sarah and us. All of it." "That's exactly what you should do," I said, helping her tape up the box. She paused, holding the locket she still wore every day. "You know what Sarah told me? Right before we left that last time?" "What?" "She said that I was the bridge between two worlds, that I carried her blood, but your love. And that made me something special, something whole." Emma looked at me with those dark eyes that were Sarah's eyes but filled with a strength that was all her own. She was right. I hugged my daughter tight, this young woman who'd been through so much and emerged stronger for it. Yes, she was. Have you ever had to face a truth that changed everything you thought you knew? Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that set us free. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe in the power of honesty and love, stay with me. I have more stories to share, and I think you might need to hear them.